Hey, who sucks? These guys. They've been underperforming our expectations. If you can still trade, maybe you go for them. Otherwise, if they're on your team, just hold tight. I think it's going to get better, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and oh my word, we'll have a look. Of course we'll have a look. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. And we are available on all platforms. You should also be checking out lockedondaily.com. That is where you find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. So get across there, hit the double bang on this video as well, and on the audio, and subscribe and follow and comment and share, I guess. All right, we are here on, honestly, it is a sad day, to be fair. It is National Pistachio Day, the worst of all nuts. Definitely the worst, 100% the worst nut. If you like this nut, you probably need assistance, attendance, mental help. Sucks. The worst possible flavor / nut that exists. And for some reason, it's got its own day to celebrate. I guess that's so all the people with the incorrect opinions have a way to feel special. Let's talk about players over the that we did when we did the show 2 weeks ago. Well, it was actually 3 weeks ago because there was the All-Star break in the middle. But it's 2 buy low shows ago. How did we go in doing that? Well, we'll take a look. Steph Curry was on that show. So Steph is dropping off a little bit. He's not quite the same player, but we don't expect him to be this poor. And yeah, he went from 77th and he's 18th since then. So that's a W. It wasn't as good news for Alperen Şengün, who went from 83rd and he's still 91st. And having a few worries about Şengün at the moment. I do think that, I don't know what's going on with his finishing. I don't know why his 2-point numbers and his field goals are so down. That's very strange. There's been so much of a change in that, and the minutes have been a bit iffy, but that one didn't work as well as we would have wanted. Franz Wagner marginally improved. He went from 71st to 63rd. I still think there's more improvement in that. The next 2 are giant W's, though. CJ McCollum went from 120 to 68. I'd also be looking to get off of CJ McCollum now if I could, just given where we are in the season, and the Pelicans may be starting to manipulate some injury reports. We'll see. And the last one was also pretty obvious. Karl Anthony Towns went from 52nd down, now he's 8th. So yeah, back to sort of where we need him to be now. Of course, the knee problem is somewhat of a concern with Towns, given the way that his coach is just so in tune with the medical needs of his players. We'll have to just hope that everything goes okay and Towns can make it through the year. But yeah, it wasn't a great sign in the last game. We'll put it that way. We're talking buy lows. Now, let me again rephrase this. This is a great point, I think. Great point. Josh, well done. You made a great point. Unbelievable. Who could make a better point? Nobody. But the point I want to make is that your league is not everyone's league. Because I know that some of you are going to be willing to type this trade deadline. It's passed in leagues. Who's making trades? Some leagues can still do it. Some can't. That's okay. Your league is not every league. My league is not every league. But also, this show does not just serve to tell you that you make a trade. I'm never holding your hand through any decisions. I'm providing information, thoughts, ideas, trends, observations. So when I talk about these 5 players, you don't have to go and trade for them. If somebody is panicking and looking to sell off at a lower price, do it. Or if they're on your team, well, just expect that there's going to be some improvement coming. So it's more just about highlighting trends. And then how you deal with that is up to you. Now, I just realized that I'm doing this. And the first graphic that I'm going to put up, I've just got a sell high tag on it, but it shouldn't be that. It should be a buy low. But you know what? Sometimes, we're all a bit rusty coming out of the All-Star break. Jaren Jackson is the guy that I want to talk about here because Jaren's been great. He is the favorite, I believe, for Defensive Player of the Year. He has been the Grizzlies' best player all season. But over the last period of time, and I'm using a 3-week period here, which 3 calendar weeks, basically, which includes the All-Star break off, to look at these numbers. Jaren, who is, I think, around 40th rest of season for category leagues. I think he's around a 39 to 40 fantasy point guy. He's down at 34 fantasy points. He's down at 121st in rankings. The numbers are just off. If you don't remember how we do this format, on the bottom of the screen, if you're watching the video, there is season-long stats. Over on the right are his stats over the last, usually 2 weeks, but now it's 3 weeks. He's shooting only 42 from the field. He's shooting 68 from the line. Okay? He's hitting 17% on his threes. There you go. This is the one thing you always take out of these shows. If somebody you think is performing unbelievably well, or just terribly, just look at their three-point percentage and see where it's at. Because usually it'll be sitting at 60 or 20. And then when that normalizes, everything else sort of comes back to where it needs to be. So Jaren at the moment can't hit threes, can't hit free throws. His three-point volume is down. His true shooting's under 50. He's hitting only 0.7 threes a game. And obviously that's not the sort of player Jaren has been all season. He's been clearly much better than that. And you can see he's averaging almost 2 threes a game for the year. He's hitting 77% free throws for the year. Like, all these numbers are just so far down that it's easy that it's going to bounce back. So again, if somebody wanted to panic and was an incredibly reactive manager, then you trade for Jaren Jackson. If you have Jaren Jackson, you expect him to improve. But it has been a pretty rough run of things. And again, we're using a 3-week sample here, which is about 7 or 8 games. And it's just a real down period for him. Like, his 2-point percentage is a little down, but it's not massively down. It's basically like just can't hit free throws, can't hit threes. It's all down. Scoring is down. That'll all bounce back up. I don't think that one is a particularly difficult one to look at and not be worried about. But every day, and I love it. I love that people provide questions and comments and things to me. Every day I get at least one where I go, what? Like someone yesterday in the comments, hey man, do you think it'd be worthwhile if I added De'Aaron Fox? Yeah, no, that'd be a pretty good idea. That would be a great idea. And like, how is that a possible thing? But it is, because there are many different leagues everywhere. And yeah, before you do it, like, I can put the taco hat on. Right, there you go. Is it a taco league? It doesn't matter. Who cares? Stupidest term of all time. That happens in leagues. Things occur. Weird things happen. People might be learning the game. But I always know there's going to be something that goes on that's going to be like blowing my mind. And maybe someone is panicking. I don't think they're dropping Jaren Jackson, but maybe someone is panicking on the production that they're getting out of Jaren Jackson. Let's go to Cleveland. Who do you think the buy low is in Cleveland? It's Darius Garland. And this one is a bit of a double whammy because he missed the last game with a hip problem. His numbers are down even before that. He's the 47th ranked player this season. To me, he was a relatively easy buy low at the beginning of the season because there were, and this is one of the things I love about doing this show and doing stuff through the preseason, is pushing back on narratives that are garbage. Where they're easily disprovable, like the one of like Garland and Mitchell can't play together. That was a great one that was floating around through the offseason. That, yeah, Mitchell killed Garland's numbers, and my retort was always, yeah, I guess that's true if you ignore the first season they play together. And Garland's back to basically that same level around it. He's a top 50 player. He's averaging 35 fantasy points, but lately he's down. 81st over the last 2 weeks of action, 31 fantasy points. He's averaging 21 and 7 for the season, but over these last few games, he's averaging 16 points. He also is down almost 10 percentage points from the line, which is, again, very weird. He's down 7 percentage points from the field. Again, that is a big difference. His 2-point percentage is down to 57. His true shooting is down at 55% when it's been way higher than that. This is an all-star level player. So is Jaren Jackson, obviously. But it's just everything down for Garland at the moment. The minutes are fine, but obviously the Cavs, it's going to be sort of up and down with that. And then he had the injury in there as well, which didn't massively impact him in terms of there wasn't a game where he played 4 minutes or something like that. But it's just going to be when people look at on your Yahoo screen or your Fantrax screen, you're going to see the injured designation. You're going to see the GTD or the red mark or whatever it is, the cross or however your site designates it, you're going to see it. So look, Garland, and the other thing is, all these little things matter. Right? Garland is not a big shot blocker, but he hasn't blocked a shot for, when's the last time he blocked a shot? On the 5th of February. He's blocked one total shot. Jesus, this is since January 16th. He's blocked one total shot. Again, we are not drafting or relying upon Darius Garland to be a shot blocker. But he's blocked 10 for the season. And he hasn't blocked one in like 6 weeks. So he's blocked 1 in 6 weeks. So I do expect that you get like 1 block or 2 blocks coming in the next 3-4 weeks. And it just adds little bits and pieces. It adds just a marginal thing. But realistically, it's like, bro, 10 percentage points up on your free throws. Let's get them up. Field goals up. Scoring will then go up, always. 2-pointers at 47. That's not what he's been up to all season. What's his 2-point percentage on the year? It's a good question. I've got the data. It's 55. So he's way down. Like way down. We're talking 8 percentage points down there. This is all, I think, easily explanatory that he's going to jump back up. Will he get back to being a top 50 guy? Yeah, I think he will. I said that 47 there, that's actually not his season long rank. That's my projection for him season long, and the 35 fantasy points. So I think it's really easily that he jumps back up to these numbers. I'm not really concerned about any of this, and I know people will be like, man, are the Cavs just going to shut guys down in preparation for the playoffs? It's not how teams do this. They might be extra cautious, but also the Cavs have been cautious all season with this team. And they will give them a couple of games off here and there, but they're not just going to sit guys down for weeks. You'll get 1 game off. They're still going to keep them limited at 30 minutes, as they've sort of been doing. But they're not going to just sit guys down for multiple weeks. That's not how teams do this stuff. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That is over 8x the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year. From the first match, must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8x the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November the 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, we've got 3 more of the buy lows to take a look at. We've done Jaren Jackson. We've done Darius Garland. Let's go to another guard who is probably the king of swings, and that is Jalen Green. And Jollibee Jalen is a little bit down in his production at the moment. We know that he can have top 10 runs. We know he can have runs where he's outside the top 180. This is generally what he does. Now, this is not one of his worst stretches, because we've seen plenty of those. But he's 98th over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 35 fantasy points there. He's at 21, 4, and 3 for the season. He's shooting 43% for the season. But there's a couple of things here that I think are worth looking at. And this is realistically what is going on. His steal numbers, they vary a lot, as everyone's do. I've got him projected at about 0.9 steals rest of season. That might be high, because at the moment he's not getting any of them. He's down at like 0.6. But why can't he hit free throws? What is going on? The guy's an 83% free throw shooter for the season. Last season, he was at 80. The season before, 79. The year before, 80. He's not an elite free throw shooter like Darius Garland. He's not this 88% guy like Grayson Allen, or 90% guy. He's an 80, 81 guy. But tell me why he's hitting 56% from the line. 59, over the last 3 weeks. What? Why is that happening? That is an incredibly low number, clearly. And it's not just one game, because his last 6 games, 7 games, 8 games, his last 8 games, 0%, 70%, 50, 50, 67, 33, 67, 33. What is happening? And then the weird thing is the 4 games before that streak, 100, 100, 80, 100. Why is he not hitting any free throws? There's really no explanation for that. Free throws are an incredibly variable category, year on year, but also like within time frames. But that's a big dip. And we bump that back up. You get that you hit an extra 2 free throws a game, which is definitely possible considering where we're at with him at the moment. How many free throws is he averaging? He's averaging 4.1 free throw attempts per game for the season, hitting 3.4. Like, he's down at like 2 a game, so an extra 1.5 points a game. All right, easy. And then we just jump back to 60th or 50th. And then if you tie that stuff in, and then he goes on a hot streak in other areas as well and starts to bring some steals, like his other numbers are actually they're all sitting like okay. But the lack of free throws is hurting. The scoring is a bit down. The steals and blocks are they're not really there. He's never going to be good on that. But also remembering, when we're talking of buy lows and resurgences from players, we don't have to look at a guy and go, well, now he's going to average 1.5 steals and 1 block for the next 12 weeks. With variation on stats, much like with Garland, what if there's a 3-week period where he just averages 1.5 steals a game? That is like a huge boost. And then after that, he doesn't get a steal for 3 weeks. But we're talking about fantasy playoffs now. We need short-term bumps. And it's never like you haven't had one for 10 days, therefore you're going to have him in every game for 10 days. That's not how all of this works. There is a bit of like elasticity in that, in those sort of stats and projections. We're going to go to Boston for the next buy low. And I know that people will have concerns about looking at Kristaps Porzingis as a buy low, but he has been, outside of the start of the season, he's been, like, I'll say relatively healthy. They're going to be cautious with him, obviously. They're going to sit back-to-backs with him. He thinks he's going to play some back-to-backs. He might. I don't know. I think he can be like the 20th ranked player rest of season. I think he can be a 40 fantasy point guy. At the moment, he's not that. He's averaging 33 over the last 3 weeks. He's 76th in category leagues. For the year, he's at 19, 7, and 2 in 29 minutes. I think he's going to be playing more than 29 minutes a game. And yeah, the Celtics are a good team, clearly, but they're not quite in the same spot they were last season. They're not as good as Cleveland this season. Things are just down for Porzingis. He's only hitting 2 threes a game. Okay. I think he's a 2.5 threes guy. He's only getting 6 rebounds a game. Okay. Why can't he be 7 to 8? He's at 0.6 steals. Is he a big steals guy? Not really, but why can't he get to 1 steal a game? No. Why is he not hitting free throws? Why is he at 72% from the line when he's a 82 guy for the season and he was at 86 and 85 and 87 the last 3 seasons? You'll notice a trend here. Jaren Jackson, Jalen Green, Darius Garland, and now Kristaps Porzingis, all of them are in weird free throw slumps. And free throw percentage is not as big of a multiplier as 3-point percentage, but it impacts multiple categories. It impacts free throw percentage category. It impacts scoring. And if you get those, if he just hits more free throws at his regular rate, the scoring just goes up 1.5 points. And that is important. There's just numerous ways that KP can improve. He averaged 2 assists a game last season. He's down at 1.4 here. Again, that is not a big difference, but it's also a 50% increase to get back to 2. He's not taking as many free throws, I guess, because some of them aren't going in. But the fewer attempts you take, the more variance there can be in numbers, in percentages. They vary a lot more. There's just a lot of things here with KP, which I think are easily going to be able to revert back. And you wouldn't be shocked if he goes on a roll where he plays 33 minutes a night, averages 25 with 2.5 blocks, 7, 8 rebounds. I think that's a reasonable enough expectation to get 20 and 8 or 21 and 8 with those 2 blocks and get his percentage back to 84, get more free throw attempts, influence that category a little bit more positively. There's just a lot here. And he's a guy that I think in terms of buying low on Porzingis, people are very, very worried about him injury-wise, and I understand that. But that also means if you're willing to take that risk, you can get an even bigger discount. Not only is he not performing up to the level that you want him to, but there's that inbuilt risk in there that maybe you can get it at a much cheaper price. Or if you've got Porzingis, just be like, hey, this is going to get better. I'm pretty confident that we're going to get some improvement happening here, and getting that improvement is going to be incredibly important for your fantasy squads. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, when they swoosh, including Kristaps Porzingis, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's very straightforward. If any player scores 50 points in a 24-25 NBA regular season game, all Dash Pass members will get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. It might be burgers, it might be pizza. You might be saying, oh, you were so pumped by that 50-point game, you're going to get all the blokes over the next day to go, hey, we're going to watch the NBA tonight and let's get some food cracking. We might get some ribs, something like that. But whatever it is, you've got this little sneaky 50% off code in your back pocket because someone dropped a 50 the day before. So easy to do. Just sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day up to $10 off. Use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders of participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right, and then we've got one more buy low that we're going to talk about, and we're going to go to another big man. We're going to head to Atlanta because Onyeka Okongwu is starting, and he will remain starting. And I don't have any concerns about that role changing whatsoever. But the numbers recently have just been a little bit off. He's averaging under 33 fantasy points. He's the 94th ranked category league player. We've been waiting so long for him to be given a chance to start, and it is happening now. They're not really pushing him into like 35 minutes or anything like that, and Clint Capella is back and playing his 17 minutes. I don't think there's any worry of Capella taking this role or anything along those lines. But the production at the moment from Okongwu is just a little bit down. He's a player who, one of his strengths as a fantasy contributor or a real-life contributor is that he is a big man who is a pretty good free throw shooter. He's at 79 from the line last season, 78 from the line the year before. He's at 73 this season. Except lately he's at 69 giggity. So, again, another one of these guys. 5 in a row who are just seeing 10, 12, 15 percentage point drops in their free throws for, no real good reason. He's also hitting an incredibly terrible 18% on his threes. He is not a great three-point shooter. He's at 28 for the season, but he was at 33 last season and 31 the year before that. But 18's ridiculous. So you're talking about 2 percentage numbers, which could easily jump 9 to 11 percentage points, maybe more on the three-point number. And obviously that means his three-point volume is down. He's also only at 0.9 blocks per game. I don't know how much of a shot blocker he's going to be. I don't think he's ever going to be a 1.5 guy, but he's had seasons of 1.3 in the past. He could easily go on a 1.5 run for 2 to 3 weeks. And realistically, you get those things all paired together. His assists are way up at the moment. His field goal percentage is strong. It's pretty high, even with the bad three-point shooting. I think we could have a run here. Like, I've got him projected outside the top 50 rest of the season. But that doesn't mean that you can't get a top 40 run at some point. You might not. But all you need is an outlier hot shooting streak from 3. A run where he gets a couple of 2 or 3 block games in a row. And then we're off. That's, hit the free throws like normal. And then there we are. We're rolling at a pretty high level. And again, there's always going to be skepticism about Okongwu. We've waited so long, and maybe this guy's just not it. Yeah, I get it. Like, he's not. I know people think that I love this guy and I think he's the best thing ever. I don't. I think he's a guy that they invested in highly in the draft and it never made sense. They wouldn't give him an opportunity. And I think his ability to play in the NBA is solid in most matchups, but he's not a game changer. He's not a high-end center. He's just a pretty good player who's got an interesting fantasy skill set because he could have seasons in the future where he's a 60 field goal, 80 free throw guy, blocking a shot with 4 assists, hitting a 3, and getting 14 and 8 or something, which is bloody good for fantasy. But as a game changer, not really. But there is a chance for some spikes because everything is sort of fallen at the moment, and we hope that it all sort of puts together back at the same time. And that would end up giving us some pretty good results. So if you've got him, like, you will be a little bit like underwhelmed, but that's all going to depend on expectation. But also if someone else has got him, maybe their expectation is misplaced as well. And you can take a look at what Okongwu brings and maybe get that at a somewhat cheaper price if you are still able to do trades in your fantasy league. And that is me trading out to the end of the show, hopefully without any people talking about pistachios. So we'll come back and do a sell high show coming up later on. In the meantime, if you hit subscribe, you'll know when that show comes out, especially with that bell on the YouTube side of it. Leave your comments down below. Also, maybe can you guess who's going to come out on the sell high show? Maybe drop those comments below as well. Keep yourselves focused. Keep yourselves locked in to this show, but also to fantasy basketball, but also just to things that you're doing in life. Remember, there's always going to be something good that you can work on. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.